Monday Night Raw, everybody. Hey, we're here to talk about Monday Night Raw, everybody. Get your get your size out. So, yeah, Raw was good now. Yeah, was good now. Yeah, it's good now. No, not a great Raw again, but it's still infinitely more watchable with fans. So I'll give you that. You're talking like so many voting this like 1 or 2. For me personally, it's pretty bad. I'll go with that. Yeah, if you don't know anything about my reviews and stuff, you know I don't normally go for the numbers score, but pretty bad. So Larry David, pretty bad, really. Anyway, hello and welcome to the Wrestling Headlines Raw Review. My name is Matt Mayer, aka Imp, and we are live here on YouTube and also available in podcast form. Links in the description, or head over to wrestlingheadlines.net for all your latest wrestling news. And we'll be reviewing the August 2nd episode of Monday Night Raw. So since fans have returned, there's been that awesome kind of hype. The atmosphere has been fantastic. Apparently, going by our own LWO, who writes, it's columnist here at Wrestling Headlines. And even he has been saying he went to a SmackDown with his son and it was an amazing atmosphere. So that's great to hear. The atmospheres are great. They were in Chicago, Illinois. As in, okay, if you're going to have a crowd to deliver a great show to, there's so many layups. You've got Mustafa Ali, you've got all that stuff there. It's like, oh, yes, you can just play a show into this crowd's hands and just create a really strong atmosphere. Make it seem like your show is a hot ticket. That kind of thing. And what we actually got was our second week in a row serving of hot crap. It's what I'd kind of like my overall review of the show. Don't get me wrong, there are things on this show that I enjoyed. So I cannot give it a 1 or a 0 out of like 10, for example. Can't do it because there were things that I generally did like, and I can't look at the bad and have that bring down the entire ratings. Like, it props up somewhat. But you're not looking at much better, really. This week's show was last week's show with the results reversed. Completely missable. Number one, did this show have any purpose in building up to the next pay-per-view? Did it actually add anything? Absolutely not. It had some nice character beats. I really liked Riddle and Omos. It was just like a nice kind of projection of the future. Just a nice showing of those two. That was great. I thought the main event generally was strong with Charlotte Flair and Nikki Ash. So that was a rematch from last week, which is technically I won't say technically a rematch because you're cashing Money in the Bank. That's a bit pedantic in terms of like reviewing a show. I don't need to go to that level of detail. That's not the kind of thing that you're like, rematch. But no, still. It was a lot of rematches. I think we got 3 rematches this week. We had 3 or 4 rematches last week. It's a running theme. A lot of this show is skippable. A lot of it is repeating same as before, but with a different ending, which makes it easy. I think I wrote this somewhere. I might even put it in the notes for the review last week. Like, surely all of this, like this idea of booking, this way of doing it, makes the TV show the opposite of the most unpredictable must-see show on TV. Like, a part of wrestling, making it feel unpredictable. Anything could happen, that whole world. Surely, this way of booking, of like rebooking last week's show, surely that is the exact opposite of that. If you try to entice fans to keep watching, we know we can skip multiple episodes, because it doesn't matter. We've likely seen it before. And that's what I was called this week's show. We have seen it before. Nothing got advanced, really. We got nice little beats, but the show's entirely skippable. And for me, if you're scoring it out of 10, it's not getting above a Bret Hart 4. It's not really, like, generally, because it doesn't offer anything to progress anything forward. But there were matches that I enjoyed. So I'm not going to give it a 1. I maybe even would give it a 3 or 4 out of 10. I don't know. I think the scale's like, I don't know, an out of 5 scale, maybe like 2, 2.5, maybe. As in, normally to give a show lower than that, it's got to be outright damaging to its characters. It mildly was to others. The most damaging stuff on the show was more nothing to do with those on the show, apart from I feel like Charlotte Flair may have been somewhat damaged by the absolute crap they gave her to say, and you could sense it on her face. We'll get to that segment. So what we're actually here to talk about It's Chicago. Chicago fans are Chicago fans. Us wrestling nerds, we all know what that means. They are going to chant what they want. And they generally, for me, the crowd didn't feel like they never went too far with stuff. Like they made some wise decisions. For example, not having Alexa Bliss do an in the ring segment. I thought that was particularly wise because you know what will happen. Just keep her off whilst we're in Chicago. In Florida next week, they'll be much, much nicer. So yeah, that was a really wise call in my point of view to do that little segment pre-taped with her. But I didn't spot anything. There weren't any egregious chants because that was the worry. You saw the response on social media. So there's that worry that a segment of a fan base can take things too far. And I say can. They do every single time. It's ridiculous. What are you doing? Seriously. Get your priorities straight. What are you doing going after... Alexa Bliss having to deactivate her account because of the whole Bray Wyatt thing. Well, what are you doing? It does for me. It doesn't even matter that your point is, oh, it's her fault. I'm not even going to answer that. It's so blatantly not, but I'm not going to answer it because it's the fact you're even going after somebody like that. Absolutely ridiculous. But the Chicago fans, on the whole, from what I could tell, they were a great crowd. Like, they were loud for a lot of things. They were amped when the show started. They got all of their chants out in the first segment, chanting CM Punk really loudly before even start of the show. And this is a great sign to see them this hot because there's a lot of wrestling coming to Chicago. And to say that they were this hot for the WWE show, that's great because this WWE show put in a lot of effort to break them down and they were still pretty hot for the main event, which was a great main event. But they've been through like 4 hours of wrestling by then because main event taped as well. About 3 to 4 hours worth of wrestling, and a lull in the middle of the show that just seemed to get like progressively, just segments just got less and less reaction. So the fact they reacted to the main event is like even more kudos to Nikki ASH. I keep in my head I go, no, it's not Nikki Cross, it's Nikki ASH. Oh, it's not Nikki ASH either. It's Nikki ASH. Such a long name. Almost a superhero, Nikki ASH. So Nikki almost a superhero ASH. It's too long. Good part of it out. But yeah, so the fact they're reacting that well to that match tells you how great a job that they did. So I give applause to that. But did they hijack the show? They hijacked the opening segment. After that, exactly what you expected. With a match that the hardcore wrestling fan base isn't that enthralled by. It does bring people in. It does get the viewers bringing back Goldberg. He is relatively popular. I feel like it is a view of, I guess in a little bubble of social media wrestling, a wrestling social media bubble that, Goldberg. Yeah, but he does actually have a positive effect. He's going to keep bringing him back until he doesn't, which... Personally, they have recently started using them to put people over. It just so happens, like the most recent one is no longer with the company, and now they're going to hopefully put Bobby Lashley over. It's just that it's a match that doesn't interest me in the slightest, and you can sense that from the hardcore wrestling fans. There is that feeling that this is not a match for us that is going to interest us particularly. I don't mind watching these matches. It's just that. We've had so many of them. Like for me, the measurement was Drew McIntyre Goldberg at the Royal Rumble. It put Drew over. Great stuff. It was that lightning fast blitz, which again, great stuff. But for me, it's got to that point of fatigue. We've seen it so many times that it's not new anymore. And the reasoning for Goldberg being in this position that he is. And for me, this is where the bad faith arguments come in for WWE bringing in a legend and, for example, AEW bringing in a legend. In AEW, they are not challenging for the title at one of your biggest shows. It's just not happening. They're being used in other ways. Goldberg, 100% can be used in another way. Absolutely love the way he's used it at SummerSlam. I want to say 2 years ago, where he just decimated Dolph Ziggler, like second or third match on the show. Absolutely perfect use of the man. But then he comes to the way he's normally used, where for some reason, they shoot him up to the title shot because he's Goldberg. I say for some reason, I know exactly why, but it's none of them make kayfabe sense. They haven't made it made sense in their world. It's more like because he's Goldberg, because he's this guy. I guess AEW, even if they're top 5, doesn't always make kind of in my head try to track it and follow it. Maybe if I watch Dark or whatever, but I don't have that amount of time to watch that sheer amount of wrestling. But yeah, even that top 5. even though I can't always track it and make sense of it from like week to week. It is a block. It does mean you can't just have somebody come in and immediately jump the queue. Like, yeah, they have to do something to get that match. You can't get in this situation, for example. It cannot happen because they put like a protective wall in front of it. So even if they get that feeling that, oh, we want to do this. Like, for example, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan going into AEW, like, will they do the straight for the title thing, given they've got the top 5? Will they make them prove themselves somehow? Will them jumping have this massive kind of reaction from their world? Because you don't do that. But yeah, here, Legend turns up, gets like main event of one of the biggest shows of the year, gets a like huge match for the biggest title on the show, and then will just disappear again. It's like, yeah, kind of just long term, it just degrades more and more. And I'll say it in these notes here for Goldberg, that his appeal, the kind of what he brings to the show becomes less and less every time we bring him out. I'm assuming they know that, but because he's still getting a certain level of reaction, a certain level of interest, then it doesn't matter. Like, he's not below. It's not a negative yet. It's still a positive to bring back Goldberg, have him do the exact same 4 to 5 minute matches he's been doing for years, and people are happy with that. But yeah, I may be bored of it. Again, my measurement to bring it full circle was Drew McIntyre Goldberg, and it's like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy if I never see that ever again. I've seen just since 2016, I've seen that happen so many times. It's just that point where I don't particularly. It doesn't do anything anymore. Somebody beating Goldberg has now lost its sting. It doesn't mean anything. So that for me, that's the good worst. That said, in the world of Monday Night Raw, I was about to say WWE, but I have a bit more respect for SmackDown. In the world of Monday Night Raw, nothing makes sense. Things just happen. So, you know what? It's perfectly fine. That's me saying, the world they have set up where nothing means anything, this is fine. this is that. It works in. Goldberg doesn't have to say anything that means any sense. He can say words. Those words happen. They can have reaction bits in there. Say the name of the hometown. That's all it needs to do. I'm going to get your title. Speak bollocks. Outside of that, it's like, yeah, if nothing means anything, you can do whatever the hell you want. I guess that's fine. I was talking about that air of unpredictability. That technically this brings that. It's in your world has no rules, therefore why should I care about anything kind of sting to it. But yeah. Anyway, so the show opened up. CM Punk chants immediately. It's like, okay, cool. Just immediately to open the show. They were chanting it. There was footage of them chanting it as main event was being taped. There's Chicago fans were a generally great crowd giving great reaction. Even if those reactions didn't always track or make a lot of sense. Like, hey, here I was predicting they might filter out these CM Punk chants, or they might filter in, sorry. They might filter in throughout the course of the show. Or when you reach that lull, that's when it would happen. Nah, before the show even happened, they are so excited for the return of CM Punk, they're just chanting it like that because they are Chicago. It's like, Chicago always chant for CM Punk, their hometown boy. Even if he hasn't been in the company for 7 years. Jesus Christ, 7 years. But him returning us was created this buzz, and he could sense that buzz amongst the arena as they're chanting it. Tonight, this chant didn't mean disinterest. I guess later on, it's a different kind. It's a normal disinterest of this is crap type of chant. Tonight, it was, if they focus waved at any point, if there was any kind of lull, they were immediately chanting it. Because there's just this buzz and atmosphere, regardless of company. Like, the boy's coming back. Why wouldn't they be excited? And like, you can sense that in the arena. Oh, the other side of it, though, is the Bray Wyatt release, getting the We Want Wyatt chants in the face of this match. And that's interesting to see that there was seemingly a mixed fan base of Wyatt, but the way he was released has definitely irked fans. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get Wyatt chants maybe in Florida. I don't know. I don't think the CM Punk chants won't be as loud, but maybe we get Wyatt chants. I don't know. But this felt like a good crowd. They didn't try to overtake the show particularly. It was just the crap they didn't like that immediately got chants. You immediately got Chicago reactions. Like no halting about type of stuff. And what didn't help? they served multiple plates of crap across this show. We'll get to them. There were some good plates as well, though, just to get it out there. That's why I'm not giving this show a 0, 1 or 2. It's higher than that. But it was so pointless, such a waste of time, such a bore as it went on. But the main event was a banger. It was like, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. So, immediately out of the gate, you get into CM Punk chants. And then you get the other Chicago reaction of, like, I know everybody's excited to see Goldberg. Immediate boo. It's, oh, that's not quite the... It's like, oh, great start, Chicago. Great start. Like, the era of WWE studio controlling crowd reaction certainly is over. I mean, like, thank goodness for that too. Fans really are the life of this show. Shortly after chanting for Goldberg, as MVP battled on about his mighty kaiju, no euphemism, and yeah, don't go changing Chicago. First off, booing Goldberg. Second, chanting for Goldberg. Because my immediate thought was, oh, these piped in because they've just booed Goldberg. Why would they cheer Goldberg? There were some people saying this chant seemed to come out of nowhere, but given that it's not been proven that there was like what they've done, what WCW did, where they would actually pipe it in a little bit to get it going. It's like, no, it could just be one bloke. One group can get a chant started. It can happen. It can happen. But a positive reaction for Goldilocks amidst the Punk and Wyatt nonsense, kind of in there for that little bit. And the segment itself, I mean, they turned as soon as he started talking bollocks. Like, what are you on about, Goldberg? The whole gladiator thing to... MVP flat out saying he's not a gladiator, he's a kaiju. Goldberg comes out, you're a gladiator, but I sense fear. It's like, this is like, he did this exact thing in the last feud. Drew McIntyre never... It felt like last time that Drew McIntyre was meant to say a thing, but they ran out of time, cut it short. Goldberg comes out and he's meant to run on what words McIntyre said, but he never said them. So it's like, sorry, what are you talking about, Bill? In your own little world. Again, amped up about nothings that don't exist. It kind of happens again here. Comes out, putting him down, you're not a gladiator because I sense fear in you. He never said he was a gladiator. What is this, Bill? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so it were nonsense words, which doesn't really mean anything, but visually, I did like that the nice touch that they showed Lashley genuinely getting got by Goldberg's words. I like this as a little note for the champion. Like, even if Bill's words don't ring as strong nowadays, or just a weird run of his dialogue not matching up with anything. Just seemed like he and MVP taking it out verbally on Sundberg. How is he the same human, by the way? What's it been, 5 years? He's changed, he's morphed. He generally does. Someone has done a side-by-side of young Goldberg in his flary shirt alongside Sundberg. I don't know his name. I'm fine calling him Sundberg. I don't like getting too into families. Yeah, have your life. Anyway, that was a tangent. So yeah, Sundberg and Goldberg, younger Goldberg, they look, yeah, it's definitely him. Just, how are you, that same kid from 5 years ago? Lashley's posing strong in the ring with his title as Goldie returns to spear Porter. And that, for me, that was the better end of run-of-the-mill hype. Like, you have the two big lads come out, say words at each other. One of them didn't really make any sense. It was kind of trying to build heat type of segment without much substance to it. But the stuff with them, with the baddies then taking their frustrations out on the weaker, more unable to defend himself kid, I was like, this is a really nice note as the baddies. I generally like that. Lashley's getting back into the ring to hold the title up high, that kind of getting that, yeah, I'm a tough guy, getting that back, getting that aura back, getting his street cred, winning his street cred back before Porter just gets speared. But they go. Later on in the show, Porter holding his stomach as Bobby Lashley uses that as his momentum to destroy Goldberg at SummerSlam. So, yeah, nice touch. Perfectly fine. Like, the action itself was all right. It built up nicely. I felt like it could have gone to another scale, but it was perfectly fine as like a building block. I don't need everything to blow me out of the water every week. That said, the words part, it was all right with MVP. But it was when Goldberg came out, it was like, oh, okay, yeah. And the fans chanting, "We want Wyatt," out of that set, like hardcore wrestling fans having just that disinterest. I say hardcore wrestling fans, it is Chicago. But this is where they chanted for Wyatt, not Punk. Actually, I'll retract that. So the Punk chants carried on throughout the night. There was only Wyatt chants, I guess, with more related segments. They didn't just chant that randomly like they do CM Punk. So, yeah, I wouldn't say this was... Yes, there was Chicagoisms. Chicago crowdisms in this show. In terms of the crowd reactions. But they never really hijacked it. They chanted stuff on their own. This was not a hijack in any sense. We've seen it before, where there is constant chants or just disinterest in stuff. There was a fair bit of disinterest. We'll get to that later. Just like words being said in the ring to zero reaction. Okay, cool. I guess we'll just get through this then. It's like, just mind-boggling stuff. But we'll get to that later. So, anyway, onto the show in order of the other segments that happened. I got through the Bobby Lashes and that stuff with the crowd. Yeah, they weren't that crazy. It was fine. Because I saw quite a few things of Chicago hijacking the show. Here's a proof of the chant of this. It's like, it was nothing hijacky. For me, this was a kind of like, no, seriously, this is what kind of a crowd... It's not hijacking, they're just responding to things. And the reason of CM Punk chants, yes, there was the excitement in the air, but also it's Chicago. So, free pass, they always chant for CM Punk. Anyway, Drew McIntyre versus Shanky. Right, so, I guess warning for the rest of the show. I was speaking, like, it was a mixture of, this is weird, this is a bit crap, but also with a sense of applause, you know. A lot of this show was just, So, Drew McIntyre versus Shanky. One of the main talking points of wrestling Twitter coming out of this show was a negative. There were two negatives, which were the main talked about topics. Again, being a Brit, when I watch the show, I'll sometimes see what the main talking points are, and I may get them spoiled. But Raw is, again, nothing matters on Raw, so I don't mind getting spoiled about it right now. SmackDown's different, actually. Even though I would say SmackDown, aside from Roman Reigns, isn't really any better than Raw. There's something about the flow of the show where I'm a bit more inclined to go into it blind. Raw, don't give a shit. Don't care at all. Doesn't matter. When nothing matters on your show, why would I care about seeing a thing? And I got zero reactions to the stuff I saw as well. So anyway, Drew McIntyre is making his entrance with his big mighty sword. Look how big his sword is. This isn't a euphemism for anything, but he's got a very big sword. John Cena audio playing during Drew's entrance, as if they were trying to pipe in some noise. And then Drew McIntyre, just in the background of him doing his entrance, you hear the John Cena thing. But actually, so that was what I saw. That was the news. And then it actually comes out that, no, it was just a complete production botch. Just looking at it in terms of what actually happened. Accidentally playing an audio clip when you were just meant to be queuing it up. Hey, it happens. It was a ad to play later. According to Sean Ross Sacrifice, I thought it was an ad to play later in the night for SummerSlam. Accidentally, the audio was played during the show. It's live TV, it happens. Like, that's fine. There's no reason for me to really run any further into it. Yeah. But the match itself, in true Raw fashion, you keep a feud going by interacting with the exact same people with DQs, disqualifications, just to, with a goodie will want to get a fair match next time. Try next week. Another DQ. Try again next week. Oh, another DQ. Try again next week. It's not repetitive at all. Mahal and his men attempting another chair attack, but this time Drew has his new sword. As I said, he's got a new sword. Feud over. He just bought a new one. It's fine. The whole instigation of this feud being that Drew McIntyre he's had his sword broken by Jinder Mahal. How could he do such a thing? It was smashed into pieces. It meant so much. And then he turns up to Raw with a new sword. Oh, okay, cool. After not having one for a couple of weeks, or even just 1 week, he's bought a new sword. So I know I think he was saying he doesn't bring in a genuine sword. They're all prop swords. They're not. I forgot what the word is. But yeah, they're all prop swords. So, which makes the ending weird, because that has been made canon on the show. Drew said it. It's like no. I'll be using it's not a sword. I only bring that out for the big occasions. Like, well, then why are they... And this is the case of something being said on a show and then just completely forgotten about. It's like, then why did the words matter? It's perfectly fine for the wrestlers to, like, in the moment, as somebody's swinging what visibly looks like a sword at them, it makes sense that in that moment, the character could be like, oh, scared and runs away. What doesn't make sense is for the commentators then to tell you, to sell it as if it's a genuine sword. If you're if you're meant to be taking a piss out of the fact that the baddie forgot it's not a real sword. But that's not there at all. It's a real sword. So that whole thing about it not being a genuine sword, none of this was meant to be a genuine sword tonight. As again, if you're not entirely sure, go by what the commentary says. That's what the actual story is. There's a lot of hindsight booking in WWE, but coming out of the show, no, he swung a genuine sword at them. So, attempted murder and all that. So, yeah. Yeah. Mahal playing the heel fleeing, but, he's right. The man did swing a sword at him. And, I'd probably react somewhat negatively. Just saying it. After the break, Mahal, in an interview, let us know that... Oh, no, sorry, it was Drew McIntyre, sorry. Let us know, because, first Mahal ran away, then Drew McIntyre let us know. The sword is called Angela, named after his mum. And, his passed away mum. And it's like, slightly corny. It's a slightly corny thing in the sword, and it's the whole part of the gimmick, but you've named it after something that means a lot to him. Make it difficult to kind of take the mick out of it at all. I don't normally take the mick out of the sword. It's just inconsistencies popped up. Hooray! Hijacks versus Rhea Ripley. Positive. Generally, I'm giving this match a positive. I generally was perfectly fine with this. I liked it. Perfectly fine TV match. This is my example of nothing. It doesn't have to blow me away if there are so many positives coming out of it. If it does its job well without really any negatives, and that's what it did. It's just nice, really, to see Ripley interact with somebody not named Flair or Nikki. This, you can do this normally and avoid all those ruddy rematches. This right here, you can continue a feud by giving us a different matchup. You don't have to just have the same people interacting. Anyway, Ripley coming across way better a face act with this match here than the weeks of woodenly produced promos as champion. One of her strikes busting Nia open near her left eye as well. Running the effect of the Legion of Doom face paint was going for. It just always adds something to a match where something like this happens. Ripley winning via roll-up after a former tag team champion dissension, kind of. Baszler was on the apron to try and do a thing for half a second, I guess. But this match really did a great job making Ripley look awesome as she fought off the power in Hijacks. Only weird thing is, they did the roll-up finish, and then they had Ripley properly get her heat by doing the big strong riptide after the match. It's don't see the harm in doing that in the match. Just, there's a lot of segments here that just go on a little bit longer. It's a bit of time extension here. Because if you are maximising time on the show, they do squish that together. On SmackDown, this match does not play out like this. Because they don't have time to do the whole different finish and then go into the riptide. But it's what worries me about the rumours of SmackDown going to 3 hours. I generally despise it. It's great in terms of getting in more money via advertisers. As a viewer, it is awful. I can't... For me, the 3 hours it's just so much kind of filler and nothing. WWE proven to me with Raw that they will not use the time wisely. With most shows, it's just nothing. It's been a full decade of this. Not a fan of it. But it does mean as well, likelihood is, if both of your shows are 3 hours, I'm not watching both of them. I'm going to cut one off. And given the quality difference, Raw doesn't look good. If you're oversaturating it, I'm gonna have to make time cuts. I can't watch both of them. Anyway, if you want to be forever glued, as in that thing of we are fighting sleep, if you overfill the day, it's too much. I will tune out eventually if you flood everything. Anyway, Mason T-Bar versus Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. Ali and Mansoor, probably one of my favourite things on the show. Just a fun time. They hardly get given any time every week, but they maximise their time so well. But this was 50-50 booking, y'all. Rematch number 1 of the night as well. Plus, Ali in his hometown. Can't be getting positive reactions like that. Take the pin, goodies. Some things never change. It's so weird. I still don't understand, especially in today's world, booking against the fans. It's the way WWE book for some reason. It's crept in there. I don't remember this always being a thing, but it's really crept in there to have bookings against the fans for reasons. And the reason it jumps out way more right now today is because the other company they'll book for the fans. If it's in their hometown, it'd be great to get a nice pop by having the hometown person win. It doesn't have to be like a main event person getting a massive win, just, middle of the card, perfectly fine for him to get the win. Not in WWE. Hometown, you're losing. type of thing. It's like, it's really weird. Especially when I'm now watching AEW trying to be this pleasing show. Whilst WWE is... I saw somebody word it as seemingly bucking off hubris. Like, we are great. Look how fantastic we are. And then watch the show. It's like, the show's awful. You don't know how to tell stories. There's continuity breaking all over the place. There's a lot of nothing segments. Most of the show is repeats of what we've already seen, just with different results. There's so many rematches directly from the previous week as well. It's like, like, seriously. Hubris should not be that high. But yeah, Mason T-Bar shown to have adapted to last week's loss with a plan. I guess commentary putting Ali over as a strategist, how Mansoor is helping them run in sync as well. But in going for a tag splash, T-Bar kicked Mansoor into the ropes, which proned Ali, and pinned is our Mansoor. Continuing the path of the rookie, having much to learn in the face of eagerness and blatant talent. Also, nice little touch. In the aftermath, T-Bar and Mace went for a big slam, but Ali pushes Mansoor out of the way before taking a mighty slam, made it look awesome. So yeah, I like Mansoor and Ali. I generally like that storyline that's going on. It's a nice little fun time. What I don't like, rematches and 50-50 booking. They've fallen into that. It's like, because next week, especially after that finish, we're getting Mustafa Ali and Mansoor interacting with Mason T-Bar. Like, that is what is on for next week. We've got rematches guaranteed. It's like, why would I? If I'm not reviewing this for a site, aka already booked in to watch the show, why would I watch the show? Like, when I'm saying this week was rematches, and the way some of the things for next week were hyped up were by establishing the fact that they're going to be rematches as well. For me, that says, oh, cool, I can just skip then. I can skip this week, I can skip next week. Maybe even just tune in for SummerSlam. It's going to be repeats the entire road, is maybe what this is telling me. It's like, yeah, it's not great. And this kind of leads me into the next segment, where I feel like for the whole Charlotte, Flair, Nikki Cross stuff, once they get into their bit, in terms of how they're selling their feud and how they're then going to build into their no DQ match, and it was a great main event as well. Like this, we've fallen into the other thing being talked about today. The other thing, which is like blown up on social media the day after, the first being Drew McIntyre, the whole production thing. I saw a lot of people don't watch WWE just going, has it really fallen that far? And it's like, what doesn't help is they are actually crowd sweetening, which is ridiculous. For me, if you feel like you want to give those big reactions, that you're having to crowd sweeten to add loud cheers and reactions to things, then from minute one, your kind of like your creative world is already failing, because you want to be getting certain reactions, but you're not putting in the work to get it. You're giving us crap stories and then piping in the audio. It's like, as a wrestling fan, I've only got so much fatigue. But anyway, Charlotte Flair. So this is the thing that either drags this show right down to nothing, or is pretty much level with the rest of the crap. Or some people saying, but she's a heel. It's like, this is a really cheap way. Like, we've seen it before in WWE. If someone brought it up, it's like not even the worst thing they've said they brought up with the whole, I'll say, the show-ending Paige and Charlotte segment, where from minute one you could sense it in the crowd. You don't need to do this. The beat is not warranted. You have not earned a beat of this level. And you can sense it the whole time, just the nervousness of even the performers seemingly not really want to doing it, and we can see they're doing it anyway. Like, the crowd was kind of with them, but not in the story they were telling, just with them themselves. Like, oh no, you're not going to, are you? For me, there's that level, because you're going for such a level of cheap heat. The crowd just go, come on, no. And if it was good heat, then as soon as he said it, Charlotte Flair would have been booed. She wasn't booed. The crowd gave that reaction of, okay. And to get them back in, Charlotte Flair was like, no, seriously, like, this is going somewhere. Like, don't worry. It's like, yeah, like, yeah, it's fine. It's like, it's all okay. Hey, trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Stay along with me for this ride. It's like, she's not confident in this either. And the moment she mentions Simone Biles' name, the crowd go, oh, come on, please don't. It just, you could sense it. And they start talking about the mental health side of it and semi-mocking it. It's like, not warranted at all. It's just, yeah, not great at all. But like, when this comes across as trying to be some form of commentary to get a reaction, but it's come across as offensive. And quite often when commentary comes across as offensive, it's just because it just wasn't written very well. And WWE is written horrendously. Like, why would they ever think they could pull this off? And it felt like the way they did it was so out of touch. Like, to think that mental health is nowadays a thing to an open crowd that you can mock? Seriously? Like, how out of touch could you possibly be? You can say, again, she said it to Charlotte Flair the moment she started speaking. It's like, we've got a load of bullshit to get through first before they get to the actual substance that maybe she's fought all going by the John Moxley story, it's maybe the thing that she has fought for all day to actually just get out there and to actually say the caveat. There's a massive caveat there. She's got to get through the caveat first to actually get to the good bit. And you know what? The rest was fine. Yeah, it went on a bit longer, but I don't know if that's just because the first part it was a mixture of stretching it out and getting through it as quickly as possible. Because in terms of creative as well, yes, you could have different opinions on, like, if you lax on the outrage to it, if you're one of those going, it's heel heat. For me personally, note number one, the crowd did not boo it. That is a bad sign. They went with a bit of quiet, and she had to bring them back on board. That's not good. Note number two, it didn't really link to the rest of the promo. There was no reason to say this, aside from, pop culture things happened. Cool. Or maybe somebody's seen something. He's like, we should say something on this. It's like, but it doesn't link. It's so flimsy, the link. Because the whole promo was more about how she's been cashed in on by Money in the Bank, and she feels really grieved by that loads of times. And her link to it was by saying that she feels like she's going to have a mental break herself for being cashed in on so many times. And it's never touched on again. There's the whole rest of the promo. She's bringing out weapons from under the ring, throwing them in the ring. I'm going to beat up Nikki Cross with this, beat her with that. And the whole thing that started the promo was like, trust me, go somewhere with this, immediately dropped. And when they got into the actual chunk of what she was saying, it's tacked on, just stuck on top. It's like, that for me, in terms of putting a piece of writing together, that is even worse. Not even worse, that makes it ultimately shit. There we go. Well, found it. To have the bad guy mock is one thing. To have it be slightly tone deaf is one thing. But I can't possibly fall on the, you're trying to write the bad guy side if after that first bit of the name drop, of the bringing it up, of the getting that reaction from the fans, to then not link it in any way, shape or form to the rest of the promo, it's tacked on and unearned. So, go away. Off it goes. Yeah, and you know what? The rest of the promo, I personally thought Charlotte did an amazing job delivering the rest of it. Getting through the absolute crap she was given before, building up tonight's main event grandly, building nicely to Cross, giving her a wee wallop on the back with a stick. I was like, yeah, fine with that. But the Simone Biles bit was utter dog shit. To quote my fellow writer Sir Sam, poorly written, poorly delivered, whoever okayed it is completely out of touch. Moving on. Tamina versus Doudrop. God, let's end that last segment on that. I was like, these are the two names I've got to say for this next match. Tag champ flying solo after Natty's unfortunate ankle injury last week. Eva Marie playing baddie distraction as the Doudrop is good, actually. The video plays in front of us. As predicted, any lull in the show got a CM Punk chant, and this sure was that. Viper continuing to be somewhat built up. Sorry, Doudrop. It's happening, keeps happening. But I'd be lying if I said the live audience particularly cared, even though she did some really fancy moves. Like, they didn't particularly care. Eva Marie accidentally halting momentum to give advice, costing poor Doudrop the match, when Alexa Bliss, popping up in a really good use for her, given what's happened over the weekend, Just popping up for a quick wee bit on the Titantron. Again, a wise use, as there were some immediate "We Want Wyatt" chants, but it was a really wise use. Announcing Eva Marie as the loser in emphatic fashion, as in a reverse of how Eva Marie's been declaring her wins, just before pissing back off. Built to a segment later in Alexa's playground. Interrupted. I didn't really get to say anything. By an attack by Eva and Doudrop, chucking Lily the doll to the floor, only for her to rise again after the spooky spook finished. Ooh. It got a reaction from the crowd. I don't know if it's the one you want. This is what I meant by the word good crowd, because they semi-played along with it in a jokey fashion, and that's possibly the best you can hope for. So, decent stuff. Decent stuff, Chicago crowd. The best summing up of this match, or this whole kind of segment between the three of them, the most over person in this feud is currently Bray Wyatt. Says it all. Right, into the actual just depths of the lowest points of this show. Unfortunately, Miz TV with special guest Damian Priest. CM Punk chants once again before Priest can even get any words in, sitting on their hands in semi-quiet for the rest of the segment. Jesus Christ. Like they've been forced to watch a friend's crappy play, politely responding as if to not to be rude. Hey, they enjoyed Priest wetting Miz with the drop-sticks. But a hilarious gif I saw after I watched the show, where somebody had just capped the bit where Damian Priest reversed Morrison and just clapped him around the side of the head. The fact that in that as well, it was a little bit with just orchestrated, I guess. No sense of kind of genuine to it, but that wasn't the thing that noted me. Was whilst that was happening, behind them, a crowd not reacting sat on their hands. Oh boy, that says it all. That says it all, really. Anyway, this set up a match. Damian Priest versus John Morrison, with The Miz in his wheelchair, cheeking about at ringside. Morrison continuing to do an amazing job making the new generation of talent look great. He's already done it with Ricochet, he's done it with Matt Riddle, here he is with Priest as well. An awesomely creative spot with Johnny holding Priest on the apron in a fireman's carry before flipping backwards over the top rope in an attempt to set up a Starship Pain like that, and then Priest grabs his ankle to stop him. It's like, just the whole thing was just a nice little segment. The match itself, overall, perfectly fine. Priest fighting back and reckoning with the win. But this was to set up the run to the next match. Caught Teddy Long as Sheamus jumps Priest and Ricochet makes a save. It's time for the tag match player. Straight in to Priest and Ricochet versus Morrison and Sheamus. And it felt like the Miz TV segment before this kind of gave the match itself. They had to work really hard to get reactions from the crowd. And there were some generally great creative spots in there. It's just of how hard they had to work. The crowd weren't really into it after Miz TV stuff. And this match, I was like, you could sense it. It's gone on too long now. You've had a not much reaction Miz TV segment. Then you've had a match that kind of had to work for it a bit to get that reaction back. And now, it's continuing, is it? Oh, okay, cool. WWE used fatigue. It was super effective. They've done this booking before. It feels a huge chunk of time, but never fails to cause that skip instinct by the third act. So, what's the point of this now? We've already seen somebody get a win. And it ended the same way, with Priest hitting the reckoning of Morrison. But like the singles match before it, this was relatively short. Like, folk getting their shit in before flipping the switch to the finale. Ricochet flying over on Sheamus on the outside before Priest, again nailing the reckoning on Johnny Drip Drip. Building perfectly fine to Priest challenging for the US title at SummerSlam. He got not one but 2 wins on this night. Hype, but not too much hype. Like just how they like it for some reason. Just mildly bobbing in the ocean. It's like, you're giving him wins though. I feel like it'll be a strong match. Sheamus wrestling on this level, finally get to do it in front of fans, is great to see. Damian Priest has been rising well as well, just to see him have something after getting an injury after WrestleMania, kind of just fading away after the zombie bollocks. Just into this. They brought that up a little bit. They never mentioned that it was a zombie match. They never mentioned any of that. But they did Miz just say, like, no, you're the one who injured me, Damien. I'm not gonna hold like any grudges. I'm not gonna hide any grudges. Like, no, the reason I'm in this wheelchair, it's your fault. Type of stuff. So yeah. It doesn't help in the Miz TV segments. Often the baby faces lines that they've been given, like, just crap and very little character to them. There's no uniqueness to it. Anyway, Riddle versus Omos. So I gave a thumbs up to this, right at the start of the show. So that's one of my things that I generally enjoyed. And yeah, it's two newer characters in WWE, and they both came out of it looking like great for the beats they wanted to get. So no AJ Styles in a possible test for the big man. He looked great on his own. Generally in this role, it worked. Maybe because you know the widest story that's going on has got AJ Styles and Randy Orton in it, but showcasing these guys by themselves, I felt like this was a really helpful beat, really. It's one of the positive beats, really, on this show. The RK Bro story really has done wonders in getting Riddle over. A great pop and reaction for the lad. Like we heard, the crowd just wake up for the first time since, I guess, Nikki A attacked Flair with the stick. That was the last time they particularly reacted to much apart from popping to a "ooh" in a match. Riddle showing heart in spite of being knocked right back down by charges and headbutts. A mighty stiff lariat grounding the man before your basic big boy finisher in the two-handed slam. Finally finishes him off. You know what? Relatively short, but did well on both men. Riddle got to show his heart, Omos his sheer power. You go into the tag match with that established. Cool. No Randy Orton. He was advertised for this match, which made it a little bit more surprising. Maybe AJ Styles wasn't there. Don't know why AJ wasn't there. But this was a nice little beat, personally. Can bring Randy Orton back next week. Got a couple weeks till SummerSlam. Is it a couple? Might be for you. If you got time, you can bring Orton back next week. But this was a well, I wouldn't call it this for me. It's a perfect example. You can have a 2 or 3 star on TV, but if it serves its purposes and builds to something or establishes a new layer, then yeah, I don't need my wrestling to be amazing. If it adds something. If it's not just a rematch, it feels like not particularly adding something. Karrion Kross versus Keith Lee, rematch number 3. Says a lot about this week when I genuinely forgot Karrion Kross was on Raw now. When he came out, I was just like, I was ready for the main event, completely sidelining this arc, I guess, in my head. It was like, oh yeah, Karrion Kross is on Raw. Genuinely forgot. But as I called from last week's review, it's rematch time. That was my prediction. Either Karrion Kross can march forward with momentum after getting a win, or just give us a rematch. It's 50-50 booking. Choosing to give some kind of effort towards the two lads in character-wise, like Kross a wee promo about an hourglass, and commentary reminding us of Lee's ability after he beat Randy Orton in his debut feud, because he's not been written to do anything else of note since. But he had that moment upon his debut, and no plans for it afterwards, was never going anywhere, but he had that thing. Lee, in the match itself, feeding off the energy of the crowd to a great reaction. These two giving another strong effort in the face of your generic 50-50 booking. Pulling out a great match in the death slot of the show. Applause to both lads. They did an amazing job. You've been given a crap slot with 50-50 booking, and you pulled a great match out your arse. Great stuff. Well done. Yeah, proof that both lads have got some talent there. And Keith Lee can really hang with anybody. So the fact that they just don't want to use him is mental. Anyway, I realised, after Keith Lee himself last week saying that, actually, I feel like I should probably tell you what's happened. Actually, you know what? Me going, they don't want to use him. They'll hold that type of thing. We'll find out. Anyway, actually, you know what? At least our next match isn't a rematch. It's but I was wrong though. This is the death slot. 24/7 championship. The now no longer Reginald, just Reggie. People now losing halves of names. Versus Akira Tozawa. He's got 2 names. Throwing short segments at me like this show will be never ending. Tozawa cries ninja power before getting beaten. Insert comment here. Reginald brings a new dynamic to the 24/7 championship, and I think I was saying either do something with it or just bin it after it's just been on R-Truth and that same beat ever since its invention years ago. So, at least now it's got a new beat. See how long it is before it goes back to R-Truth. But that said, positive there. Main event time. So ending on a positive. The build for this show had an absolutely massive negative. For this main event, had a massive negative. But we finally get to our no-holds-barred main event. Championship contenders match. It's they're still continuing with that name when it's a style of booking they've been doing the whole time anyway. But yes, Nikki Cross versus Charlotte Flair in a no DQ match. And yeah, it's once again 50-50 booking time. Nikki becomes champion, Charlotte wins. Nikki wins this week. Next week it means it's Charlotte. That's how 50-50 booking works. Personally though, it's going to be Ripley. I'm expecting Nikki versus Ripley. That's my prediction for next week. These two gave it their all though to have an absolute banger of a main event. Charging through barricades, tables, announce desks, what have you. The crowd chanted for CM Punk anyway, and I was like, hey, I'm tired at this point too, and I didn't have to sit through main event taping first. I was like, I get it. You may be struggling to get invested in this match at this point of the night, but they did put in a really strong effort. They got this as awesome chant. So I think it was after the announce table drop. It's like, yeah, they generally gave it their all. Nikki continuing to fight in spite of getting her ass beat. Charlotte cockily pinning the Scottish not superhero with one foot. Getting overzealous with her charging right through a table. The wounds showing on both of them as Nikki went for the win. Lifting the tall lass onto the ropes for a great twisting neckbreaker. Once again, Raw delivers a strong main event on the end of a mediocre, outstaying its welcome show. We'll say in terms of the beats for Nikki Cross, the wrestling we're seeing in front of her does not fit the commentary still. It's crazy. Just building it up as Nikki Cross kind of earning her wins, and she's really proving herself when all of them have been opportunistic, kind of capitalising on something. It doesn't gel. And she's the champion. Trying to prove to us that she can be a superhero. I'm still on that point. If you're trying to, you're calling yourself almost a superhero because you're not quite there believing in yourself yet. So, crowning her champion, that you're at different points of the arc. So, it's a weird one. Anyway, yeah, a strong main event. Again, liked Omos Riddle as well. But overall, not a good show. Maybe 3 out of 3 to 4, maybe. I'm not going to above Bret Hart. It's not happening. Yeah, another bad Raw. It's been back for 3 weeks. The first one feels like a bit of a write-off just because of the amazing atmosphere, because it was that first week back. But the shows were never great really since the return. But the first one didn't really need to be. But I've really felt it this past 2 weeks. And now we're already at people tuning into the show to see the fans negatively react to it. This is week number 3. I thought they'd get past SummerSlam. This is smashing all of the records in terms of how quickly fans just immediately are just tuning out of it. But the show's not good, and this is to be expected. Just a lot of the tropes and bad habits they picked up over the Thunderdome era, I don't know if they'll just take a while to maybe shake off, but they're all over this show. Just in terms of WWE over the course of this summer, all those things where it's like, but fans aren't here. Once fans return, maybe there'll be a much stronger direction and purpose to these shows. It won't be so much filler just to get through them. It's like, no, the booking is identical. This week's show was last week's show with different finishers. Absolutely no point in watching it. I'm through the Thunderdome era, I was giving shows that statement on the end of it, my final word or phrase to leave the show with, and it's like, yeah, there's no point to watch the show. Complete skip. Absolutely no reason to watch it. Nothing has moved forward. You can skip it. Nothing happened. It's fine. Didn't progress anything. You're absolutely fine, and it appears next week's show will be exactly the same. So you're perfectly fine. Perfectly skippable show. That's what I'd call it. That's why, again, but with the positive of I really did enjoy the main event. So if you're like, oh, but were they so good matches? Yeah, main event. Almost Video was a great kind of little character advancement beat, giving them a nice little showcase. But really, the stand-up match on the show was the main event, which is a running theme, really, for Monday Night Raw. Crap show, but you get a good match at the end of it. Is it really worth the rest of the 3 hours? No. Anyway, that is the end of Monday Night Raw. I'll be back next week to go for this crap again. But anyway, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at the Damn Impicat. That's Dams and Dam. Also, over on the Twitch, I'm planning to get started up on that again as I get back into the groove over at the Implications with 2 S's. Wrestling Headlines, this website we're doing this for. Also on Twitter at Wrestle Headlines. That is Wrestle without an E for the first bit. And over on Facebook as well with doing well on Facebook. Put it mildly. Great to see. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed. I can feel my voice going. I was out of town at the weekend for the first first time doing that, having a proper night out drinking in over a year and a half, because it would have been December 2019. That time did anything. It took me a few days to recover. Yeah. How are you guys doing, Matt? Pretty blurry. We'll see my energy levels are not quite there yet. Anyway, I'll be back next week to go through this crap. What did you make of Monday Night Raw? Did you have a high opinion on it than I did? What did you think about the Chicago crowd? Do you feel like they were a bit too getting themselves involved in the show? Or like me, he's like, actually, this was one of the more lower key ones, so they were a pretty positive crowd, really. And of course, the other big talking points, the Drew McIntyre, for me, it's just a production error. Move it to the side. But also the Charlotte Flair line on Simone Biles. The genuine reaction to that seems to be awful. So, yes. Before I go, let's just check. I'm going to have to unblur my eyes to read. So, from Ed Dead. Sasha Banks at Mania got hair whipped, so if there was logical, she shouldn't she be covering her belly at SummerSlam to sell the thing? Yes. Or even just now. Really. Again, I've not watched SmackDown, out of town, and I just didn't get round to it. But with just now, why not cover a belly on? It's like, nice continuity. It's just a little thing like Aleister Black turning up on AEW with the thing on his eye. Just like, continuity, isn't it lovely? As in, it's just a little note. I don't always out loud go, isn't that lovely? But I will be like, that's nice. And it's a nice feeling to go, that's nice. Don't tell my year 6 English teacher that's how I phrase that sentence. Never don't say nice. Nice is crap. Good is crap as well. Anyway, our teacher said that to our faces. It was like, isn't this nice? No, you're right, it's crap. Very harsh. At least it didn't whip us. Anyway, I will be back next Tuesday with the Raw review. Yet another crap show. Completely missable, doesn't progress anything. You're perfectly fine to miss it. Doesn't matter. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. You can skip this show. You can probably skip next week's as well. But I'll be here to review it anyway. Why put myself through this? Anyway, so I'll be back next week. And with that, I bid you adieu. Adios.